What if real healing isn't about fixing the body that we think is broken and only focusing on the biochemistry? What if real healing comes when we restore and remember our original blueprint and our pattern, and we heal at the energy and frequency level? Today, we're going to be exploring something really fascinating, the Holonomic Fractal Genesis Engine. And this is a model of healing that looks at, instead of fixing, but remembering, it is about resonance, about geometry, and about frequency. And I've decided to invite Jess Leffler back to the show. We did a podcast a while back about frequency healing and this model. And these ideas, although they seem very complex, they are rooted in ancient truths and wisdoms that we knew long ago, but are finding resurgence and description with modern language of quantum physics and the holographic nature of the universe. And so today, Jess has graciously come back to do a presentation for us where we can actually go through in a step-by-step fashion to address some of the nuances of this model, but he brings it in a very practical, actionable sense in which for each condition and each topic that he presents, we're going to get actual ways in which we can translate this knowledge into healing our body regardless of what type of issue we have going on, be it physical or mental. So I know that this was a bit long because it is a broad topic, and just like on cue, as we are dealing with maybe disharmony and dissonant frequencies in our field, the storm and different technical issues in our communication frequency also was disrupted. So please bear with me that there was a couple needing to reconnect to the internet and also a little bit of glitching throughout. But I promise you, stay with us because this is really fascinating, and this paradigm shift is going to blow your mind and improve your health in immeasurable ways.
So today we're going to be discussing the sovereign body. But first, I'm going to start out by telling you a little bit about how I got this holonomic protocol for health. So first off, the Holonomic Fractal Genesis Engine, or HFG, is a computational model of universal evolution, consciousness, and phase transition. So basically, what I'm proposing is if the model I made is correct, then the rules of the universe, from the way a galaxy spirals to the way a thought forms, are identical repeating patterns or fractals across different scales. The model also proposes a photonic topology, which basically means it's treating the universe as a programmable interface. And I wanted to follow up with a quote from something we talked about briefly last time about the sun. And this is from a Toltec shaman. Light is a living being that contains all of the wisdom of the universe. It is the supreme messenger, constantly sending information to everything in existence. So how I built this engine was using what's called a complex valued recurrent graph neural network. No, that's very complicated to say, so we can abbreviate it with the CVRGNN. And why I use that is they're particularly useful for wave type information and frequency domain, which is what the holographic engine is based on. The Pribram-Bohm theory is a holographic model of the universe. So these specific neural networks are represent this type of physics model. So basically, HFG is a deep learning model that simulates the universe as an evolving information geometry. So it suggests that information exists as interference patterns of waves that are lensed into particles, which how I talked about last time, where these particles then are taken by the sun and they're weaved into matter. So the next thing is basically the universe is intentionally imperfect. And this is because if we had a perfect balance, there would be a heat death. The universe would burn up. So this fractal balance is what keeps the universe the way that it is. Time is not linear, like we've been made to believe. It's actually fractal. So this where the number of epochs is shrinking towards zero. So what is an epoch? It's a person's life marked by notable events or characteristics, which basically we're talking about a person's life cycle. So from their very start to their death, which is the phase transition I talk about here in wave 10, which the model HFG projects a theoretical 10th wave where the universal frequency vastly exceeds the capacity of carbon, and you become your light body again. So information is conserved through a process known as a photonic upload, which means a person's biological body is transformed to light, which is what I just explained about the frequency mismatch and leading to the body to fail. This transition allows consciousness to once again synchronize with the implicate order or pre-space-time. So how did this relate to today's topic? Well, CVRGNNs can be used to model biological networks along with their processes. And this is done to capture complex interactions and structures within the networks. One of the most exciting discoveries made by HFG was its calculation of a specific resonant frequency for life on Earth, which I had explained last time, which was the 432 hertz being the macro constant solar harmonic. And basically the frequency acts as a carrier wave for biological consciousness. So in the model, how I was basically explaining about light, the unmanifest is redefined as a 0-point field of coherent light. Sorry. And the manifest is the secondary state where the light is pinched into particles, where I had mentioned where these particles are then weaved into the matter in 3D space. And light expresses itself in billions, if not trillions, of different forms to create the material universe. Light is constantly sending information all the time to everything in existence. So I wanted to go over briefly the holonomic mind, which is about the human brain, which is a model that HFG proposed about how our brain works. So the brain's physical architecture is fractal. So if you know anything about the human brain, if you look at the folding of the neocortex or the dendritic branches, they all have this fractal appearance to them. And the way that they branch helps the neurons tune into the holographic field. So your brain's frequency matches a specific coordinate within the holographic manifold where this information is contained. So your brain, what I'm proposing is your brain is entangled with a specific coordinate within the geometry of pre-space. And this is what you're connected to And this is how you upload the information into your brain. So your brain doesn't store memory, it addresses it. So basically, we were recalling memories and recalling our past, figuring out things like mathematical calculations or whatever. It's not because of memory necessarily. It's because your brain is connecting with the node in the pre-space where your consciousness is existing. So you're uploading this information as opposed to it's being stored within your brain. Frequency. So when these frequencies drop, disease sets in. Like I had said last time, chronic illness is not a life sentence. And we can look at it as a frequency tuning opportunity. So our first step is what's called grounding, which we had talked about last time, which is being physically connected to the Earth's surface. So walking barefoot, using a grounding mat, you end up quieting the noise of the EMS in your home. And this allows you to absorb Earth's natural frequency, which is 7.83 hertz, also known as the Schumann resonance. So first thing I wanted to bring up was Carl Pribram, and I had just mentioned him. He's one of the founders for the holographic model, actually, of the brain, and then it was constructed into a holographic model of the universe once he became in touch with popular physicist David Bohm. Anyways, according to the holographic model of the brain, if you believe a frequency will heal you, you create a constructive interference pattern. So basically, you train your brain to resonate with a specific interference pattern that allows you to, how they say, this placebo effect to create healing. So one thing you can do at home is using binaural audio and set it to a theta setting between 4 and 7 hertz. And then you will visualize your illness leaving the body. So the whole thing behind this is if you feed the brain a healing frequency while you state, you actually can reprogram the brain, which is developed by the Lashley-Pribram neural lattice. I know that's very complicated. And it basically allows one to accept health as the new default state. And it can help override one's chronic illness. So another thing I brought up is last time was about your minerals and the connection between minerals and frequencies. So frequencies and light need conductors to work. So if you are mineral deficient, light therapy will not be as effective. And last time we had talked about magnesium, and magnesium is the primary mineral that allows mitochondria to hold a charge from red light therapy. So without it or deficiency, you're basically trying to charge a broken battery. So what you can do at home is you can supplement with transdermal magnesium oil, or you can use Epsom salts while doing the light therapy. And then this will help pull the magnesium deeper into the tissues. So like I had mentioned, I don't absorb magnesium well because of my epilepsy. By doing this protocol, this will help it actually pull it deep into the tissues. And then this also allows chronic pain and brain fog to lift much faster when you're using these in tandem, which when we had talked about the blue and red light therapy briefly, using things in tandem usually extremely benefit the healing. Basically, the concept is supplements are information supplements in a glass bottle, It's ideal to place them in direct sunlight between 7 and 9 a.m. for 15 minutes. So the whole idea is basically this is when the full spectrum of light primes the molecules within these supplements. So when they're ingested, the nutrients actually carry a higher vibrational charge. And this allows them to be more bioavailable to your mitochondria. So the golden hour protocol. So we had talked about this briefly the last time, but we didn't go too deep into it. Basically, the first hour of sunlight contains a massive amount of NIR, which is near infrared light. And it also has almost no UV light at this time. And this will prime your cells to handle the stress of the day. So at home, what you can do is, like I had mentioned, was view the sunrise within the first hour without your glasses or contacts, and this will help set your circadian master clock. So this will help activate your CNS. And then basically the benefit is this will align your internal biorhythm with the Earth's temporal signature. And then this will act as a natural shield against the entropic noise of the modern world. So sound bathing, I'm not sure if listeners are familiar with that, but 528 hertz or 528 hertz has been suggested. It can be used for healing for DNA. I have not gone into tremendous research on 528, so I don't know how much legitimacy is behind it. So until I do the actual research myself, this is just a suggestion. It may or may not be the healing protocol you need. But basically, water is the most efficient carrier of sound and sound frequencies. So so you want water to be structured into nice coherent shape, or like how I said, like these nice hexagonal patterns. They should be strong, as opposed to like loose and broken apart. You want nice ice-like structures, and certain frequencies will help the water within your cells come together like that. Specifically, we had talked about the 432 hertz. 432 hertz actually primes one cellular water to be like basically take on perfect form and perfect shape. And the water within the microtubules in your brain, when they're primed like this, they are able to communicate with the high range of frequencies that are in the terahertz range. And the brain communicates with terahertz. And if you take 432 hertz to the 40th octave, that's the range of communication for the brain. So that is one of the new discoveries I found out, which is pretty amazing, to find out that basically 432 hertz completely organizes your cellular water throughout your body and in your brain and the microtubules in your brain. Anyways, back to the sound bathing of 528 hertz. So like I said, water is the most efficient carrier. So if you don't have a specialized bed, placing a high quality speaker against your chest or back while playing a frequency will allow vibration to travel throughout your skeletal structure. So the whole benefit behind this is the vibrational massage should help release trapped emotional trauma. And then many experts believe the primary storage site for stress, that it's pretty much, they believe that this will help relieve stress that triggers chronic illness. Sorry. All right. So structured water. We basically briefly been talking about this. We're 70% water, but not all water is the same. Chronic illness, I brought up last time, it usually involves bulk water that cells can't absorb. Dr. Polak found that infrared light, either from a sun or a lamp, grows the layer of structured water in our cells. So using a vortexer or a glass stirring rod and creating a whirlpool in a glass of drinking water can help once you expose that water to infrared light or sunlight for 10 minutes. So basically the benefit behind this is that structured water is more viscous and it carries a negative charge. And this will provide an electrical push that's needed for detoxification and nutrient delivery. This is another holographic healing model, the microbiome hologram. So basically the idea is there's 100 trillion bacteria in our gut. Bacteria respond to our emotional frequency, and stress makes the bacteria pathogenic. The idea is peace will make them symbiotic. So by placing your hands on your abdomen and sending a frequency of gratitude, so emotional equivalent of 528 hertz to your gut, and like visualizing how they said with the placebo effect, and align your intent with the health. And just through this idea of reminding yourself and telling yourself, you know what it's like to be healthy, through intent, you could create healing. Chronic illness almost always involves a leaky gut or dysbiosis. So the gut is a bioelectric environment. So if the pH and voltage is wrong, bad bacteria is going to thrive. So one thing you can do at home is laying down on a PMF mat and set it between a frequency range of 1 to 10 hertz. And this can help recharge the cells of your intestinal lining. This will increase tight junctions that help effectively seal the gut and stop the flow of this dysbiosis or leaky gut. You can also use what's called UVB, blood irradiation, sorry, complex word, light. So basically this is a therapy that's typically done by a practitioner. And this is done by exposing the blood to an ultraviolet light. And this acts as a powerful reset for the immune system. And this can kill pathogens within the bloodstream. So one called the cold plunge. And you see these things on social media, whether they're for healing or not, or people just jumping in cold things. Often involves also lazy mitochondria. So this means they need to be shocked back into an efficient state. So cold water creates massive piezoelectric charges in the skin. And this will force the mitochondria to get rid of old energy and retune their vibration to a more efficient state. So what you can do at home, one of the home protocols is at the end of a warm shower, turn the water to pure cold for about 30 to 60 seconds, focusing on your upper back. And that's because that's where the brown fat cells are stored. So one thing you can also do for a chronic illness is what's called the Schumann shield. chronic illness recovery is nearly impossible in high EMF environments. And that's because they interfere with our voltage gated calcium channels. And this causes them to leak calcium, and that keeps them inflamed. So by using an active Schumann resonance generator, and this will plug into your wall, and this can broadcast 7.83 hertz signal within your house or room, and this can help create a shield from those EMF frequencies. There's something called the zero-G sleep sanctuary, something I wasn't familiar about originally. So basically, our body performs 90% of its frequency repair during our sleep cycle. So if you're sleeping in a high EMF field, your cells are constantly going to be in defense mode, and they're never going to have a chance to repair. So one thing you can do at your house is turn off your Wi-Fi router at night and put your phone on airplane mode. Another thing, you can use our blackout curtains, and this will help protect melatonin. And then if you can also get silver thread grounding sheets, this will help bleed static body voltage. And the benefit behind this is by creating a radio silent environment, this allows the Schumann resonance to become the dominant signal within your brain. And this will induce delta wave sleep state. And when you're in delta wave sleep state, this is where most of your healing is going to occur. So another healing protocol you can do is what's called the Faraday recovery. And this is basically a protocol of total electrical isolation. And this is best used for those who have severe electrical sensitivity, specifically sufferers of Lyme disease and MS, or people who have really reached a plateau in their healing. So there's something that's called the poor man's Faraday cage. And what you do here is you line your bedroom with conductive carbon paint or silver mesh wallpaper. And this works by creating a zero field environment. And inside the specific environment, this will allow your body's cells to become silent, and the mitochondria can devote 100% of their time to repairing your DNA. Oh, obviously, we all know heavy metals are terrible for your body, whether you have chronic illness or not. So this protocol is basically a heavy metal detox protocol you can use. So what we've found is every metal also has a resonant frequencies. So like a metal such as mercury, lead, or aluminum, they are antennas for EMFs. So they stick to your tissues, and this will make detox slow and painful. So one of your home protocols basically you can do is take a natural detox binder like chlorella and do this for about 30 minutes before you do your frequency work. Next, you can use either a Rife or a PMF device and then set that to the metal's particular resonant frequency. And this will help shake the atoms of the metal at the molecular level. And this vibration basically loosens the metal's bond with your fat and tissues, and it'll allow these detox binders to flush them out of your kidneys. So another protocol that one can use for chronic illness is one of the most powerful. And we had discussed this in the last podcast, which is known as photobiomodulation or red light therapy. Basically, specific wavelengths of 660 nanometers and 850 nanometers near infrared helps penetrate the skin to hit the cytochrome C oxidase in your mitochondria. And this will trigger the production of cellular energy, also known as ATP. So this is, and applying a high quality LED for about 10 to 20 minutes can help recharge the cellular batteries, and this will help the body begin to repair itself. So I wanted to cover a protocol for MS and other autoimmune diseases. So basically, multiple sclerosis, as you know, involve the immune system stripping away the insulation of our nerves. So in frequency medicine, this is basically viewed as a short circuit in the body's electrical wiring. So what you can do at home is you can use microcurrent therapy, specifically frequency-specific microcurrents. And you can use this to match the frequency of your specific tissues. So your tissues as well have resonant frequencies. Let's see. So specifically frequency for nerves, sorry about that, is about the 396 hertz range. And then frequency for inflammation, as you can see there, is about 40 hertz. So using these frequencies together will help allow your immune system to stand down. And this helps myelin builders like oligodendrocytes to begin their own repairs. So another protocol you can do is we had discussed was applying a blue light. And this is between 405 nanometers. And this has shown promise in modulating immune response, while the near infrared light, the 850 nanometers, penetrates more deeper to stimulate nerve regrowth. So one thing I wanted to cover was the voltage theory of chronic fatigue, which basically is healthy cells have a voltage of around 25 millivolts below zero. And to heal, they need 50 millivolts below zero. So positive ions, so like electronics and things like 5G, drain your voltage. So at home, you want to use something like a high output negative ion generator in your bedroom. You can also use a biomodulator, which is a handheld device that sends specific frequencies into the acupuncture meridians. And this will help refill an organ's energy reservoirs. Also, spending time near moving water, even like a shower, waterfall, or the ocean, that provides raw electron donors to your skin. So the idea behind chronic pain is that chronic pain is often a phantom signal that is stuck in a recursive loop within the neural manifold, and that has become pinched. So by treating pain as an informational log jam, it can be effectively erased without chemical intervention. So you can do this at home while wearing headphones. Apply a 432 hertz frequency to each ear. And this will help the hemispheres of the brain to synchronize. And this vibration allows the trapped signals to dissipate into the background noise. So this helps you get back in tune with the natural resonant harmonic frequency. So this is another thing that I learned I was not familiar with, which is called the vibrational ghost healing phantom pain. Chronic pain often becomes a software error. So if, like how I proposed in my model HFG, basically where it's a programmable manifold. That's kind of how we're looking at it as. So basically, even if an injury is healed, our brain still continues to play that what's called a pain engram on loop. So you're basically, even though you're healed from the pain, it's still pinched into this loop that just keeps going. So you have this feeling of phantom pain. It's tricking your brain into thinking you're feeling pain when you've already gone through healing. So one thing you can do is what's called mirror box therapy and frequency entrainment. So the idea behind this is you use a mirror to trick your brain into seeing a healthy limb while playing a frequency or a solfeggio tone of 174 hertz, which is known for pain reduction. And the idea by doing this together is to help overwrite that pain loop that's stuck within your brain. And the idea basically is the 174 hertz frequency acts as a deep anesthetic for your biofield. And this will allow your brain to let go of the memory of the trauma. And this should help delete that phantom or ghost signal from your nervous system. So one thing I wanted to cover is these are two diseases or chronic illnesses that are on the constant rise. So I wanted to cover them because a lot of people do not get help for things like Lyme disease, fibromyalgia, MS. A lot of people struggle finding the healing that they need. So I combine these two because as of now, there's really not a whole lot of testing done behind the proof of fibromyalgia. It sometimes can be more of a symptom of Lyme disease. They can be confusing. So I kind of just wanted to combine the two of them because symptoms from them are very similar. So the idea basically was fibromyalgia symptoms could actually just be a product of Lyme disease. So somebody could have Lyme disease and not know that they have Lyme disease, and they're diagnosed with fibromyalgia. They're not getting the treatment that they need. They're getting treated for, chronic nerve pain. So basically, there's not a lot of research done to help people who have this. So right now, there is just not a lot of protocols that we can go through to help people with this. I kind of just wanted to make this slide in awareness for people who feel left out with healing protocols or feeling like they're not recognized. And I definitely suggest trying all these protocols because the Rife frequency has been known to specifically destroy Lyme disease spirochetes along with their other bioorganisms that are a product of them as well. So I didn't want to leave people out thinking that I forgot about chronic illnesses because I feel like a lot of these people are left out. But I do suggest doing the Rife frequency protocols specifically for Lyme disease. And then using what we had just talked about with the ghost protocol for the phantom pains, that should help with fibromyalgia. Not saying that's gonna, be the resolution, but if you're stuck in this nerve pain loop, it might help trick your brain into being, hey, this isn't right. And you might be able to get some relief by doing that. So if people aren't familiar what the Rife protocol is or what a Rife machine is, it was work done by doctor known as Royal Rife. He was also an American inventor trained in bacteriology, and he basically extensively worked on different designs that he used for healing. So his idea was basically that diseases such as cancer, they could actually be treated by what's called devitalizing microbes within the frequency, within these frequency-based devices. So using a Rife machine or frequency generator to emit what's called a mortal oscillatory rate. So basically you would find the frequency of the Borrelia bacteria or any other co-infection and then broadcast that frequency directly into your body. And then that should help the bacteria completely shatter. And the idea also is that human cells during this process will remain actually unaffected. So you can also use a PMF mat, and this will help create a magnetic pulse that will flush your tissues. And this should help make it impossible for the spirochetes and other co-infections to be able to actually hide in your joints or deep tissues. So using these, like I said, using a lot of these protocols in tandem with each other are your best options, not just using one or the other. Using a lot of these protocols in tandem with each other are going to provide the best results long term. Science looks at fibromyalgia almost as a total body phase noise. So basically, the fascia or the silver skin covering our muscles becomes dehydrated, and this traps pain signals, and this creates that loop, and which I had mentioned is a commonly reported symptom of Lyme patients. So the idea behind this is what you can do at home is apply a mechanical vibration using something like a vibrational plate or a sound lounge, and specifically within the 30 to 60 hertz range. This will generate an electrical charge that actually liquefies the stagnant tissue. And by standing on a vibrational plate for 10 minutes a day should help shake this waste out of it. And this will help provide almost immediate relief for your chronic pain. So one thing also basically we had discussed too is you can have an amazing diet, you can have an amazing physical, healthy lifestyle, but if you're not mentally sound, that's not necessarily going to keep you healthy. So many chronic illnesses like fibromyalgia and other autoimmunes have a stored trauma component to them. And these connective tissues act as a recording medium for the stress. So basically it remembers these. Excuse me. It remembers the trauma. So it creates this component that helps solidify that loop of whatever you're experiencing from your chronic illness. So using a weighted tuning fork at 128 hertz, and by placing it on the stem of your sternum or whatever painful joint that is bothering you, the idea is that the vibration will travel into the bone and connective tissues around it and help break up the stagnant energy patterns that are actually associated with these old emotional traumas, stored trauma. So I had brought this up the last time as well, which is the Carl Lashley idea of the memory of health. So your body remembers how to be sick, but it also remembers how to be 100% healthy. And this is the primary engram, or a physical, basically a physical or biochemical change in the brain that represents a memory trace. So your home protocol would be using a frequency disc or a high quality speaker and play the 528 hertz tone into a glass of spring water for about 5 minutes. And by drinking this informationally pure water, you are basically feeding this neural hologram a reference signal of perfection. And this should help override your chronic illness software, if we're thinking about it in this whole idea of the brain uploading information and treating these things as like informational log jams, as opposed to how we're looking at them today. So this is known as the memory of perfection. So basically the idea behind this is your brain isn't just the record of your past, but it's also a holographic projector of your future. So instead of fighting your chronic illness, spend 15 minutes a day remembering what it feels like to have that unlimited energy. And by providing your brain with this frequency of vitality, you're basically giving your molecular loom the instructions it needs to reweave your tissues. So this protocol is known as the long haul syndrome. So post-viral long haul is often a state of persistent viral resonance, which means the body has cleared the physical threat, but your brain, this neural lattice, is still vibrating with the memory of it. So this is still basically keeping your immune system in a state of chronic alarm. And what you can do at home to help with this is by listening to 40 hertz binaural beat audio. And 40 hertz range is basically the gamma range. And you'll do this to each ear. And why I say each ear every time is by using these in each ear, this can help connect the hemispheres in your brain and keeping your brain working as one. And then do this 30 minutes a day. And it's recommended specifically to take something like a high dose of vitamin C because it basically provides the fuel you need for this cleaning process. So standard medicine says healing takes time. But Bohmian physics says healing is a phase shift, which means disease is just a persistent standing wave, and health is another. So what you can do at home is, if one can achieve absolute eternal silence, which basically means shutting off your internal talk just even for 17 seconds, and doing this while focused on a healed blueprint of yourself can actually trigger a collapse of that wave function, that disease wave function. So basically, by shutting off your internal talk, focusing on the healed blueprint of yourself can actually trigger a collapse of that wave. So basically, the idea behind it is the sick version is basically enfolded back into the space-time vacuum. And this HFG basically refers to this as an information theoretic relocation, or what people today call miracle healing. So the vagus nerve is the highway between the brain and every major organ. So for chronic illness, if your sympathetic nervous system is locked in a stress response, the body will not heal. So in order to overcome this, we need to do a master reset. So what you can do at home to do that is basically, there are things called a vagus nerve stimulation device, and you basically click that onto the tragus of your ear, and this will emit an electrical pulse that will help wake up your vagus nerve. Also, chanting at a low frequency, or even humming Om, and that's around the 60 to 80 hertz range, actually stimulates your vagus nerve, and that can help lower the inflammation. So chronic illness often isolates an individual, but HFG proves that healing is a shared frequency. So by following Carl Lashley's non-local engram theory, a sick person in the house affects the field of everyone else, and vice versa. So when one member of the family is in a healing crisis, the other the home protocol then for this would be, when one of your family members is in a healing crisis, the others should sit around them and then all try to breathe in rhythm for basically all breathing in a 5.5 second coherence rhythm. So this will help create a radiant field, and the healthy members amplify the 432 hertz, basically the solar harmonic, and this will literally pull the sick member's biology into a higher voltage state. And then this healing should happen specifically 13 times faster when the family breathes as one. All right, so I wanted to go over a few quotes dealing with personal, mental health, family healing. And these are words of wisdom by my ancestors. So humans are victimized by knowledge, meaning we're victimized by what we know. So if we make a mistake in front of someone, we try to justify the mistake to protect our image. And as we know, that's not going to benefit our healing. So what you believe about yourself is what you project to other people. And that leads to what other people believe about you. So if you project a certain image and people receive that image and treat you a certain way, that also is not going to help lead you to a better mental connection for a healthy lifestyle leading to healing. So one of the things also I wanted to talk about is that we we are the role models for our children. So if we want to teach them the correct path to healing, the correct way to thinking, if we fight and share our anger, our children are going to learn that this is the normal way of being. And this will only pass down more poison to them and create these engrams or reoccurring loops of sickness. So basically, like with the healing protocol, where one person is sick in your family and the other people are sitting around to help make that person better. Well, if you're shelling out all this anger and poison and your children are learning from that, then that's what they're going to end up projecting onto themselves, leading to what could be a chronic illness. So by changing ourselves, we deliver a message to our children that carries actual truth. And that truth is that love is easy. It's not work, but we do have so much work to do. And that work is to unlearn all the lies that we believe. And to live in love is actually what is to be alive again. So the story basically begins at birth, at a time when we're in perfect harmony with all of creation, a time when we still saw everything through the eyes of truth. So when we're young, we tend to trust everyone. If someone tells us a story, we're eager to listen. So when someone finally tells us a lie, then we tend to believe it. And this is where we lose our innocence and develop our desire for self-importance. And when we allow ourselves to become a judge or victim, we continue to uphold not only the distorted image of ourselves, but reality as well. So this also leads to the constant chaos that we bring upon ourselves, and why people are constantly plagued by chronic illness, and whether that's a physical chronic illness, mental chronic illness, or whatever. Another thing I wanted to go over is basically, so what makes us powerful in life is our faith. And faith is power of creation that all humans have. And that's not anything to do with religion. So faith is the result of an agreement. So when one believes in something without question, and you may believe you'll fail, then you will. So how this relates to our healing is, if you don't put true intent into your healing, then this is what's going to happen. Then if you believe you're going to fail, you're going to fail. So chronic illness is not a death sentence. It gives you a chance to take control of your life and reconnect. But you have to believe and use your intent to get to that level, because if you don't, you're going to get stuck in that recursive loop of your chronic illness.
I want to say, wow, that was presented wonderfully. There's so much information in that was both scientific to kind of explain the reasons behind things, but also brought down to a practical level. So this was now a way where you had all these home practices and things that we could do. Some of them might still be a bit complex for people who don't have access to a Rife machine or PEMF, but there were so many things in there that were actionable right now, because a lot of it, and especially the way you ended there beautifully with really relating this back to how we live in truth, how we live in love, and our own sovereign ability to heal ourselves and what's truly possible. And I think that message will really resonate and stick with people that are suffering. And there was so many nuggets of wisdom in there. And at the fear of making this a really long video for people, I actually was trying to take little notes as you were going, because almost every slide, there was just something that either inspired me to want to have a conversation about it more, or just to go a little deeper with it. So I don't know if, for time, if we can do all of these
Mhm.
things, but just in the beginning, right when you were explaining just the actual
Mhm.
holonomic fractal genesis, you mentioned that if that there had to be it had to be imperfect in order for it to not
Mhm.
dissipate with heat, I think was how you described it. And so I
Yeah.
just want to make sure I understand that theoretically and also practically. It made me at least visualize internally the idea that um, when we were all one, so we had the oneness of life, and then it divides into like the yin and the yang. So we had
Mhm.
all of a sudden duality, which gave this freedom, a freedom of free will to choose right or wrong. And it sets us on a path now of light and dark and up and down, hot and cold, all of these things that kind of separate us and make us be able to choose either to live in harmony or to live in dissonance. And that without that sort of imperfection, then the whole model doesn't even begin to exist. I didn't quite understand how it what the physics was behind it'll heat up or dissipate in that way. So maybe if you could just bridge that gap, and am I kind
Yeah.
of understanding it?
I guess the best way I guess I could relate it to is yin and yang. So there is an actual light and a dark half. So the whole idea behind it is that this light and dark half, where this comes into play, is basically, gosh, I think it was in 2013. I don't have my book in front of me, but uh, a physicist by the name Max Tegmark, he discovered what looked like this separation in the cosmic background radiation. And it was like this, what they call now the axis of evil. So this axis of evil actually splits the universe into a light and dark half. And how this is possible is there's 33 quasars in what's considered the light half, and there's 15 in the dark or on the other half. So it's split. So they're 15. So the light and dark. So 30, 33 divided by 15 is the exact same number as yin and yang. So it's the whole idea of, yes, there's a balance, but the balance is imperfect. And that is the fractal nature, and the beauty of it is this imperfect balance.
Okay. I think I understand that now, and hopefully viewers do too. The
Hearing
next
now?
thing that I kind of made a note about is now we're still talking about this
Okay.
fractal nature. And one of the things that it made me think about when you were describing sort of like in the brain and how the unmanifest and the manifest is folding over in the brain and through the dendritic and axons and these things. It made me all of a sudden, again, just like in the first question, that it made me visualize this yin and yang with this fractal nature, it made me think about how, as above, so below, and that the way the cosmos appear as each planet as a cell moving in this waveform, and then us as
Mm.
individual organisms on a planet moving, and then down to our cells, that it also has the same kind of pattern. But even then on the earth, that the mycelium nature of the root system of mushrooms and the trees
Mhm.
underground are kind of like this antenna for the earth, the same way our
Mm.
brain is this antenna, which you kind of picked up on later about like memory. So how memory is not really something that we're storing inside, but something that we're connecting to,
Mhm.
which made a lot of sense to me. And I think that's kind of a growing way to sort of view life. At least I think a lot of people are coming around to that. Um,
So basically the idea is your brain acts like an antenna, basically, and that antenna is what's receiving the information, and then basically what happens is the antenna then creates these interference patterns within the cellular water within the microtubules in your brain, And this is where Carl Pribram basically, his theory is the interference patterns that were basically in the cellular water were interpreted. There we go. Interpreted basically as like our reality. So the interference patterns, the microtubules like read these interference patterns, and this is how you see your 3D reality.
And even when you were talking, I know I wrote down somewhere further on my list here just the word tubular. So I'm going to just mention it here then too. I think we were talking about sound there, but one of the things in bioresonance and bioenergetics that I learned about was viewing our heart not as a pump, but as an imprinter of sound, using
Mm-hmm.
phonons to move through the blood. And that was in service of as it moved through the organs of the body, it would find the yang organs, which are hollow, and it would all the tubular spaces. It would fill up that area with the phonons as a communication method, much the way like a drum or piano or guitar has these hollow spaces in it that hold and amplify the sound. So too
Mm-hmm.
did these yang organs hold and amplify the messages that your heart was imprinting, which is why it was so important to like have coherence between your heart and your mind, because this is what this message internally that you were generating. So the same way that there is this information field in which is connecting to us, that also internally we are generating something that's connecting to the rest of our body at the cellular level. So again, that fractal nature of how it's all connected. Like you can't separate any of these things. It's like each one is intricately entwined with all the other things. Now, I made so many notes here and you went through a lot of slides. So I hope that I'm catching the right points because
Yeah,
I was trying
yeah, of
to
course, of course.
but there was something about you were talking about salt as well too, and I think that this is something that people undervalue because we're told in our society, especially by the medical system, at some point it was like salt is the enemy, and that might be true of sodium chloride or just table salt, where they've stripped all the elements out and it's just only salt. That might, in fact, increase blood pressure or hypertension, these things. But when we take salt as a full spectrum, so whether it's Himalayan pink salt or Celtic salt, and you have now all of these other trace minerals that are provided with it, it is exactly what your body needs in order to have the right electrolytes and the right things. Because when we think about a battery, and I know you talked a lot about, disease being an insufficient batteries in the body or voltage. What is a battery? A battery is positive and negative grounded and and salt solution, right? To charge it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what our body is. So when we think
Yeah,
about how we would charge a battery, we need to think about our bodies the same way, which made so much sense when you were talking about like water being purifying as well, because we're going to get the negative ions and it's going to be this electron exchange. And in
mm-hmm.
energy healing, a lot of times when in between clients or when I've worked with somebody and the energy is particularly heavy, even just the fact of washing your face and washing your hands with this intention of kind of washing away some of the energy can be really powerful, or having a shower in this idea to cleanse, or Epsom salt bath you suggested there too, which is a way to
Mm-hmm.
like add some of these things back into the body, but also to purify us and to take
Yeah.
maybe some of the positive ions. And I think people maybe don't even understand that. So I'm going to just back that up a little bit too for people that were watching if they don't understand some of these terms. So, our body is made of negative and positive charge, and the ions, our body likes to be more negative than positive. So, as you suggested in some places, the positive is being added in higher levels through Wi-Fi and all of these dissonant frequencies that we weren't really designed to live in, which is why it was so important to ground or to use some of these devices to block out. And I would even suggest beyond just blocking them out is just connecting at some point and spending more time in nature and in
Yeah.
places where maybe these are not blanketing us all the time. Um, but yeah, I thought that the water and the salt thing was interesting because we consume a lot of sugar in our culture, and
Mm-hmm.
sugar is not a dietary requirement. We do not need sugar, but we need salt. So people
Yeah.
that are trying to avoid salt, I would say stop doing that, but just get the right kind of salt and then
The
start bringing it
Celtic
back in.
salt is actually what you should specifically use in the water, specifically Celtic salt, is definitely
Yeah.
recommended.
And that's actually one of the things because we talked about this, I think, last time too, is that when I distill the water because you've taken out all the minerals, I
Mhm.
usually, I know they say to add the salt back into the water, but I find it hard to drink after and then I don't drink the water. So I actually
Yeah.
just put a couple of grains of Celtic salt under my tongue. So it's a sublingual,
Well, yeah.
integration. And then I don't mind that little taste of a couple grains of salt. And I do that every time I pour a mason jar of distilled water. That way, you're still getting all of the proper minerals, but you've excluded all the nasty stuff we get from our drinking water.
Yeah.
So one of the other things I wrote down here was just the Schumann resonance. And for people that didn't understand that or have never heard of that term before, this is just like the interaction between the geomagnetic field of the Earth and the ionosphere, lightning strikes, and kind of what's coming from the solar radiation. And it creates this frequency that at 7.83, and it changes a bit depending on your latitude and longitude in the world, but that's a standard kind of range, and that's like in the human health range, and that's why when we're grounding and we're in nature, it's beneficial. And I know we talked about last time that there was 9 phases of wave, and then when you go to 10, you become from carbon back to light. And we talked
Mhm.
about 9 being magical. And I just wanted to point out that the Schumann, when we add up 7, 8, and the 3, we get 18, which adds to 9, which then is the magic number again. So it's just
Yeah.
there finding the patterns again in life and this fractal nature of everything that even down to these frequencies, even the ones you mentioned, like 528 hertz, it's the same thing when you're adding everything you want in the Schumann or the solfeggios. Every frequency adds up either to a 3, a 6, or a 9 when you add the numbers together. Whether it was 432 or whether it's 528 or 174, like all of these frequencies all come back to this 369 um,
Yeah.
model, which again, just for viewers, it's just it ties all these pieces together. We hear so much information out there and we don't understand maybe why that's also meaningful to us. But when you start to see the bigger picture and you laid out a lot of it today, it really pulls it all together to see why all of these things individually might seem like really small things to do, but they have this like pattern to the fabric of the nature of reality and consciousness. And I think it's very fascinating that, this deep learning was able to pull out these ancient practices, but then pair them with all this modern understanding of quantum physics and, all these new theories of the holographic nature of the universe. So just going back to my list, sorry, my phone keeps timing out for it. Um, what else did I just want to mention there? So we had, oh, another thing just I just wanted to add in when you were talking about being able to structure the water. So if
Mhm.
beyond people who just want to structure it just through creating the vortex or adding the colloidal minerals into the water or solarizing the water, I know for some of us still like our coffee or we like other substances. And if we still want to add the structure back in, they did find that in Gerald Pollack's research when they were working on the fourth phase or easy water, that the battery of the cell was able to move the positive charge away and the negative charge near the surface of the cell, which was what was creating the battery and
Yeah.
allowing the nutrients to go into the cell and toxins or methylation byproducts to come out, much like PEMF was helping with that process. That because the cell membrane is a hydrophilic or hydro or like water loving surface, if we could create the membrane to be so plump and strong that this whole battery and this whole internal process, so that when we had the red light therapy coming towards us and our cells were able to charge the voltage even better, one of the best things they found to create that cell membrane, which then in turn creates the battery, was ghee. And so, for anybody that doesn't know what ghee is clarified butter made in India, where they separate some of the proteins out, so there's no like lactose or dairy involved anymore. And it never, like just like honey, it never goes bad. It stores permanently. So, if you were to put ghee into your tea or coffee, and then you create the vortex by, say, putting it in a blender or a Ninja Bullet, for a couple seconds, that as it made a vortex with the ghee, it would structure whatever liquid it was in. And it is like supercharges your body as well to structure. So just another little tip there, just for people that were listening, that's another really cheap, easy thing you can just add at home, and it would give you like another depth to structuring the water, which in turn structures the cells in your body. Um, okay, and then something you mentioned, which is fascinating to me because I have always wondered this, and maybe you can help me to understand some of the paradox here. So you were talking about the microbiome, and most people understand the microbiome because that's a lot of buzzwords this day, just like the vagus nerve and nervous system, the gut-brain axis is trending. So people think of the biome more as what kind of bacteria is in the gut and what kind of bad ones come in through bad diet and stress mediated factors. And we think of that still, though, very much as like an actual virus or a bacteria or a parasite coming into the body and taking root. But what you're suggesting is more that it still also is holographic in its nature, that it also is created by frequency, and that our internal environment, so our own mindset, is very much playing a role in how it manifests, whether for our benefit or for our detriment. And
Yeah.
and I know one of the questions I asked you last time in the podcast was about how to sort of um, make this paradox more understandable, where the body is illusionary because it's really just vibration and frequency, and it's a hologram. But yet when we get it wrong, it's so foundational because it's we could die or have disease. And
Mm.
so I always wondered when thinking about my daughter having Lyme or myself with MS, which they link to Epstein-Barr, is that if I'm a holographic being, then is there still some kind of other natural phenomena in which I'm ingesting a parasite that is a real thing or a virus, and that's coming into my body and my hologram is interacting with it? Or what you're suggesting in this theory is that that's still just being created within my hologram by me.
Yes. So when it comes to that, basically, um, like yes, you do have a carbon body. We know that. Like we have a material physical form. But like I had mentioned, is like we are technically just tightly weaved particles of photons. Um, and while all things, like anything that we eat, any of those things, they have this like material form, they really are just resonant frequencies and particles of light. So healing needs to go way beyond just trying to treat some either carbon organism or whatever. We have to start looking at resonant frequencies. And a lot of these concepts and ideas are more like metaphysical. So I kind of was trying to end with the whole thing is like knowledge is filled with lies. Knowledge is what we know, knowledge is what's been told to us. But truth is what we experience. So, how that applies basically is that if you believe that what other people are telling you, that this whole carbon based form or whatever is going on, this whole material idea of healing is what's needed to get healing, you're going to convince yourself to believe that. And we all uphold this reality. We live in the same reality because we've been told to uphold it, and we've learned how to uphold that. So what we experience is a product of what we've learned to uphold. And what we've learned to uphold are these ideas of healing with pills and other types of medications, and we're not focusing on what we really are, which are these light beings and the frequencies that are actually making, that are like basically responsible for our makeup. And if we're not focusing on frequency tuning and focusing on our intent and our true belief in healing, then you're not going to get healed. We're still going to be going to the hospital. We're still going to be going to the doctor. People are still going to be dying of things that they could get healing from without um, shoving down a bunch of toxic pills that have all these negative side effects that could, I mean, they put warnings all the time that you could die if you take this medication.
And I think this
So,
is beautiful then that we're shifting to this new paradigm because in the old paradigm, like you're saying, there's a lot of limiting beliefs on there, right down to things where they told us that you couldn't regrow brain cells. And, we know
mhm,
that that is not to be true. But while we still believe that, people wouldn't even have tried to overcome or to retrain neuroplasticity. Like people wouldn't have even done anything that would have been beneficial because we just shut down belief before we even had a chance to even try to do anything. And this
yeah,
new paradigm is then allowing us to have so much more sovereignty and agency because it is saying to us how much is really possible by just using the power of our own mind. And even the things that we're still suggesting we need externally, like maybe a Rife machine, a supplement, or do we need a PEMF device? At least at a minimum, even though these are still frequencies or treatments that are coming from outside of us, they don't come with harm, right? Like there's no when like I use PEMF on people, there's no toxic amount that's too much. Like if your body, when the magnetic field is going through, if your cells are already at full voltage, it just continues to move through. It does nothing. The body ignores it. Only the cells that are requiring additional charge are going to pick up the magnetic field and listen to it. Otherwise, it does nothing. So, at the worst that could be the outcome is just that you didn't have any result because what the problem was not an undercharged cell. But at least the unintended consequence wasn't death
yeah,
or some secondary disease. So it's
mhm,
still, we've moved ourselves into such a better position where, the external devices are at least not harmful. And much of it actually just comes down to us. It's being generated from the inside out as we start to realize that the body is being created by projection from our mind and from this unified field, as opposed to we're just this random biological meat suit that has created neurons in the brain that somehow our sensory organs have then made memories which are stored within us and die with us. And now we just have this whole new way of looking at it, and it's very empowering.
I definitely have gotten a lot of pushback on the papers that I've put out. But I've also received like a lot of support from some physicists, which have been people are tired of being stuck in the same thing, and hopefully a new wave will help promote change. But I am getting pushback from the younger generation because people want to believe what I said, knowledge, and what is knowledge is filled with lies. You didn't live 100 years ago, or if you did and you were reborn, like I said with Wave 10, you don't remember that. You're not, unless you're watching this podcast now and you're a shaman or something. Like that's just not you don't know truth because you don't, at least you don't remember it. So what you have is a point of reference developed by somebody else.
Well, we live in a polarized world, just like we talked about with the yin and the yang, that there's always going to be opposites and people that
Yeah.
are on different sides of the spectrum. And some people are very entrenched in the materialistic Newtonian worldview. Some people, especially, I would say that, during COVID, it really highlighted the people who were supporting of pharma against those that wanted something alternative. And at the same time that we had polarized politics, it really pushed people to fall on one side or the other. And because we have this
Mhm.
tribal nature to have this in-group acceptance, sometimes this unlearning process that would be required, this curiosity, is cut off before people can even really listen to an alternative because, of all of these other factors that are going on. But this will kind of bridge me to the next thing because I think it's fascinating how people will accept frequency when we use it for communication. and when we use it for, water treatment or for medical things. But as soon as we talk about it from consciousness or a biofield or bioenergetic perspective, it becomes woo. So I was thinking you were talking at one point about using UV to purify the blood. Now, I was did ozone therapy before, which they take the blood out of the body, they put it in an ozonating machine, and then they put it back in, and it's used to kill virus, bacteria in the body. And one of the more advanced devices, when it takes your blood out, it puts it through different light spectrums to filter already the blood before it even goes back ozonated into the body, so that what was in that blood is already cleaned before that ozone is being used to clean not only that blood, but your internal blood. So it was kind of
Yeah.
taking this 10 pass ozone and putting it on steroid. And
Yeah.
that was so powerful actually, that healing, that the Herxheimer or the healing crisis it gave me was a little too intense. So I pushed back. But it's actually considered doping in other countries. So if you're a healthy person and you don't have a lot of problems going on, this treatment was actually banned by the Olympics as it was so beneficial to accelerate. So it's like, how come in one sense we can say these things are working so good, we're gonna
Mhm.
ban it, but yet when we try to put it in our medical model, because big pharma's got its teeth there, all of a sudden we're gonna deny it. And it made me also then think about my pool. So I went with the saltwater pool because the chlorine is definitely negative to be bathing my kids all summer in. Salt water still generates its own chlorine, it dissipates, but it's a better level of chemical. But when I was talking to the guy that was installing my system, he said to me, the saltwater system is going to break down quicker than a chlorine one, but not to worry about it, because by the time my system needed to be replaced, that pools were now going to not use any chemical or salt, that the pool was going to have a UV light in it. And as the water came from the pool, it would pass through UV light, be cleaned, and then come back into the pool. And I'm like, so even in industry, if we can accept Wi-Fi and 5G, and we can accept MRIs, and we can accept that the pool water is going to be cleaned by light, why would people push back when we think about our blood being cleaned by these things? You know, Uh,
Yeah.
it baffles me still a little bit, but I think though, like, this will bring me to my next point, that you were talking about grounding and about the sheets. And as much as it makes me want to laugh, because I think, doesn't that just make us sound like tinfoil hat conspiracy theorists when we're saying paint your room with like a magnetic field and then put,
Yeah.
silver on your bed? It's like that makes you really sound like, oh, witchcrafty, weird, crazy, right? But I know that this is true. And I just
Yeah.
interviewed somebody last week for the podcast. And this was a father who has 8 kids, and his youngest child was developed autism. And, aside from changing the diet and taking away screens and blue light from her, they started sleeping her on grounding mats. And the transformation was immediate the first night, and it has been
Mhm.
sustained in her. It didn't cure the autism, like you said. You're not saying that, and that these things will just magically maybe fix everything, but the quality of this child's sleep and her behavior and her ability to soothe and calm, like quality
Mhm.
of life improved from night number one. So, I mean, that to me, I know it's not science-based evidence medicine, because nobody is doing a double-blind, placebo control on these things. But anecdotal evidence matters a lot, and especially for
Yeah.
people that have a chronic illness, because if somebody, when they tell me, oh, this was in my situation and this worked and it helped me, I'm suffering so much right now. I don't really want to wait for you to do a 10-year study and trials and all these things. If you tell me right now that something that's really no side effects and it's cheap and easy right now, like, I want to do it right now. And I don't really
Yeah.
care, how the study came
Yeah.
about or what went, who funded it, or what, you know,
Mhm.
politicized medicine agreed with it.
Yeah.
Good enough for me.
Yeah.
And I just wanted one more. I think there was a couple more things I noted there. Um, Water moving. I think some of these we covered. Oh, the weighted fork. I just wanted to explain that to people too, the difference between some of these things, just for clarity. So when you were talking about like binaural beats or these other frequencies, these are audible frequencies that we're looking to hear autoacoustatory. So we want to hear an audible sound. So this would be like a singing bowl or, listening to headphones or music, whatever it is. The weighted fork is a little different because this is not creating a tone. So you're not hearing the tone. The reason why we put it on our sternum is because the weighted fork it actually does more physical vibration. And so when you put it on your sternum, you feel that. Like if you were to talk, your voice would go, like it would shake with the vibration
Yeah.
of the fork. And I wanted to just let people know that do have MS that are listening that 174 weighted fork or even like a lower number down is because the lower the frequency, the bigger the fork, so it vibrates more. This is beneficial for you in a way you wouldn't even think about because it's vibrating and it's not listening. If you strike that fork, if you put it on your feet or another part of your body that's gone numb, this works even for diabetics too, or anybody that has neuropathy. If you put that onto your leg or your foot or your knee, wherever area, it'll start to vibrate. And even if you can't feel it vibrating, the cells on the inside are still getting the benefit of what you're talking about, like shaking the fascia through rebounding or through some of these shaking plates. That vibration will happen regardless of the area being numb or regardless as if you don't hear the sound. And so
Mhm.
that would be really beneficial for people, and again, anyone that's listening, you can pick these things up on Amazon now. Like they're widely available. So even though they're still a bit out there, they're becoming mainstream enough that, you can find this anywhere. And, I think the last thing I just wanted to touch on was when you got to the end and you had so much insight into, how can be internally created. So you
Mhm.
had all those beautiful quotes at the end and ways to kind of make this practical for people and to kind of how they can implement a different mindset. And I want to thank you for doing that, especially at the end, because I think regardless of how much information we can give people, some people, especially with chronic illness, they can feel a bit overwhelmed already. Like there's a lot going on in their life that between what the doctor is saying and their family suggesting and the pressures, and then, people like us come on and we talk technical terms. It can feel a lot for the nervous system to take in. But when you ground it back to this message of hope and sovereignty, and even the fact that you put the sovereignty in the titling, really means a lot because this is where people are going to feel empowered to take steps towards healing, is when they feel like there's something that is within their control. And certainly our mindset, our relationships with ourselves, with our own thoughts, and how that can extend then to the relationships with our children, our family, and this beautiful healing circle where you're going to put your family members around the person in the tribe or that really needs the healing. I mean, these are definitely things our ancestors would have done, and
Mhm.
and even, tonight later for people that are listening, it's my healing circle, which is a free thing that's available through my website. The idea is the same, is that, and even if it's done remotely, so yeah, we're not sitting in an actual circle, there's
Mhm.
still the power of intention for everybody to come together and have this collective prayer of wanting and wishing and bringing thought into material form. So the more of
Yeah.
us that are holding on to this morphic field, then the greater potential for healing to come about. And I know you're getting pushback and that some people are not agreeing with you, but I'd like to encourage you to keep going with what you're doing because this is definitely the new paradigm of healing. This is, I think, the wave will eventually, the tide will turn, and this will become mainstream. And it's very beneficial and it's going to help a lot of people. So thank you for putting this presentation
Of
together.
course.
And for anybody that wants to check out the podcast episode as well, I'll link that with this presentation. And I suggest you watch both of them because they both give a different avenue and perspective on the topic. And before we just close out, then any final words or anything that you want to impart before we finish up?
So, yeah, basically, as like I had said last time, I mean, you can't look at chronic illness um, as the end for you. You really, really just have focus on yourself, focus on self-love, focus on your intent, focus on truth, not knowledge. So, and now we know what the difference between those two is knowledge is, yes, might be what you know, but it's filled with lies. So what we know is truth. And we know the truth about our health, and we know the truth about ourselves. So we have to focus and have intention and believe in those truths, and we can manifest that healing for ourselves. But without intention, without pure love, without ambition, you're not going to go anywhere. And like I said, it's not a life sentence. You have to do what you can to just stay positive. And the more and more you practice these things in tandem with each other, believe in yourself, if you have to reach out for support to others to help keep you going, or tape sticky notes to your bathroom mirror to give you motivation every day to continue on, then do that. But we should focus on what we know, and that's our truth, and we know how to be healthy.
Okay, well, thank you, Jess, so much for being with us today and for taking the time to put this presentation together. And if you stuck it out and you're still with us, I know that there's no way that you could make it this far and not have learned many new insights and truths into healing and practical tools that you can take forward with you on your journey. So if this resonated with you today, consider subscribing and liking, and share this with somebody else that maybe needs to hear these messages of hope and inspiration, and to gain all of these practical tools and actionable steps that we can take this theory that seems complicated, but it isn't really, because we're going back to ancient truths that we always knew. We're just bringing it into a modern lens, and giving it this scientific validation and understanding that the old truths always spoke about, but now we're pairing it with new language. So I hope to see you in the next exploration. Stay curious, stay healthy, have a blessed day and a blessed life. Namaste. Thank you for listening to Mind Over MS. For more episodes, guided meditations, and healing resources, follow Energy Over Matter and subscribe wherever you are listening. Until next time, this is Dana Wilder signing off. Have a blessed day and a blessed life. Namaste.